Okay, so pie charts has been one of your recent home learning topics that you've done over the last couple of weeks on Dr. Frost. So I know you've been practicing the practice questions. So we're going to have a little look now at some exam style questions, those that you might come across when you do your assessment when you come back to school. So the first thing that we've got is that the pie chart shows us that there are 240 students in a test. And the question wants me to say, what fraction of the students get a grade F? Now, even just those little things about highlighting keywords in your test, do it, because it really does help you draw out the key information. Okay, so grade F, if we look at that, is 60 degrees. So 60 degrees out of a possible 360 degrees in a full pie chart. Now then, it does want our answer in its simplest form, so we now need to think about what's the highest factor that we can divide 60 and 360 by. So we can divide 60 and 360 by 60. So we are going to do 60 divided by 60 would be 1, and 360 divided by 60 would be 6. So we get left with an answer of 1/6. Okay, looking at question 2. So Jerry went on holiday to a game reserve and he recorded the number of each of the 5 different types of animals he saw. Jerry saw 8 lions and he wants to know how many giraffes did he see. So the first thing, let's pull out the information that we know. I'm going to draw this in a little table. Okay, and I'm going to write it as animals and angle. Okay, so the first thing then is that he saw 8 lions, and we know that that represented an angle of 40 degrees. So I'm now going to compare and find out what one animal would be. So if I wanted to represent what one animal be, what angle would one animal be? Well, if I divide by 8 in the animals, I'm going to divide by 8 with my angle. So one animal would represent 5 degrees on a pie chart. Okay, so now I can go to answering this question, which is how many giraffes did he see? Well, giraffes is represented by 75 degrees on the pie chart. And I need to know how many animals, how many giraffes that is. So I'm going to think about how many times does 5 go into 75? 5 times what makes 75? Well, that answer there would be 15. So if I times 5 by 15 to get 75, I would times 1 by 15 to get 15 giraffes or 15 animals. Okay, and we can do that in a nice little proportion table like that. Okay, question 3. So question 3 is more about drawing. Now, I'm not actually going to physically draw a pie chart here for you, but we are going to look about that key information. How do we get the angles? So the first thing that I always think is important to do is to look at what's our total frequency. So our total frequency on this would be 11, add 17, add 8, which gives us a total of 36 fans. Okay, now we know, I'll just put that at the bottom of the table, we know that our pie chart is represented by 360 degrees. So I'm now going to see what each fan is worth. So I'm going to do 360 divided by 36 fans. And that gives me an answer there of 10 degrees. So what that information means is that one football fan would be represented by 10 degrees on a pie chart. So if I wanted to know how many fans wanted a burger, then to get this answer here, I would be doing 11 fans multiplied by 10 degrees, and I would get an answer of 110. To get pie, I would be doing 17 fans multiplied by 10 degrees, which is 170 degrees. And then finally, last but not least, we would do hot dog, and hot dog is 8 fans multiplied by 10, and we would do 80 degrees on our pie chart. And we can always check that we've done those right, because we should now be able to check that 110 add 170 add 80 does indeed add up to our 360 degrees. So it's a nice little check to make sure that our angles add up. Okay, and then finally, it's going to move on to another interpreting and reading of a pie chart. So it says the pie chart shows how pupils in class 9A travel to school one morning. So I'm looking at that pie chart straight away and I'm thinking, have I got all the information that I might need? Well, it tells me the angle for walking, and it tells me the angle for train, and it does tell me the angle for car. So we know that square there represents a right angle, so that's 90 degrees. What it doesn't tell me, therefore, is what the bus is. So I'm going to work that out first. Okay, so I'm going to do 360, take away 75, take away 90, take away 60. And that leaves me there with an angle of 135 degrees for bus. I'm just going to write that on my diagram. Again, something that is useful to do in your exam. Don't be afraid to write on the diagram. Okay, so the next bit of information it says to me is that 5 pupils walk to school. So I'm going to draw myself a nice little proportion table. So I know that we'll go for pupils and angle. So 5 pupils walked, and walk on the pie chart is worth 75 degrees. So I'm going to do 75 degrees there. So just like last time, I'm now going to find out what one pupil would represent. So one pupil, well, I've divided by 5 on the pupils. So if I divide by 5 on the angle, and I would get an answer there of 15 degrees. So that means that one pupil in class 9A would represent 15 degrees on the pie chart. So now I can use that information and I can have a little look to see the rest of the question. So it says, work out how many pupils in 9A travel by bus. Well, bus, thankfully, I've worked out. So I know that my angle for a bus is 135 degrees. Okay, I've got that information from my pie chart. So I'm now going to look at what do I multiply 15 by to get 135. So 135 divided by 15 is 9. So if I times 15 by 9 to get 135 degrees, I'm going to times by 9 on my pupils. So 9 pupils represent an angle of 135 degrees. Therefore, 9 pupils came to school by bus on one morning.